coming to you live from the shop at around 4:50, closing in at 5 p.m. I actually had a completely different topic that I wanted to talk about today, um, but I guess I got a phone call that really bugged me. So I figured, you know what, let's talk about this phone call. I got a phone call, as I often get, someone asking for gaming supplies, in this case D&D. I got this phone call, and as I always say, I said, no, well, we don't stock any gaming stuff, but there's a game store right across the street. If you are watching this video not in New York or not on Huntington, Long Island, you might not know, but right across the street from us, we have Main Street Board Game Cafe. They sell Pokemon, Magic, Lorcana, One Piece, all the card games. They sell D&D stuff. They sell Warhammer stuff, and they have a cafe and tables to play it on. Look them up, Main Street Board Game Cafe, really wonderful place. But hey, Mark, they're obviously more of a rent the tables, come play events kind of place than they are like a games store. Like their store area is tiny in comparison to their play area. Makes sense, right? There's a cafe, there's hosted events, there's rentable tables, so obviously they need to make space. This person goes, you don't mean, when I say, they have stuff, you don't mean the board game cafe. Like absolutely shocked, blown away that I would suggest they buy a gaming thing from a board game cafe. And I'm like, yeah. Hey, Joe, you might find this interesting. I mean, they were really, as I said, they asked if I had something gaming stuff, and I said no, but there's a game store across the street. And they said, you don't mean the board game cafe? And I'm like, yeah, they host things, but they also have all stuff. He goes, well, so you don't have, ignoring what I said, so you don't have the new player's handbook that just came out, the D&D player's handbook. And I'm like, that's what you're... See, if you were calling and you wanted a specific kind of dice set or screens, there's a small store. They're limited. So I get it, but you want the 2024 Player's Handbook? So I said, yeah. I mean, we don't have it. I'm thinking like, Joe, I just packed yours away. Benny picked it up, by the way. I said, we can order it, but we don't have it in stock. But I'm pretty sure they do. Like, it's just weird to me. And they went, okay, thanks, bye. Bye-bye, and hung up. And I'm just like, I don't have it anymore. By the time he called, it's gone. They're on their way to you. The whole box. But here's what gets me crazy. The way he said the game cafe and the way he said bye-bye, like after I said, was like I'm crazy for suggesting that this super common gaming thing might be at the game store across the street. More than that, like I don't mean to say, D&D Player's Handbook that they re-release each year, like I think Target has those. Definitely Barnes & Noble has them. He was, again, maybe he's had a personal experience with the game cafe. Again, Main Street Board Game Cafe, wonderful place. We love them. I'm not saying anything negative about them. Maybe he had some negative experience there or something. He doesn't want to go there, but it doesn't make sense for me going, look, there's a game store. We don't have we don't have gaming stuff. Like, we don't have Funko Pops. We don't have Funko Pops. It's not a thing we carry. We don't have gaming stuff. There's a game store across the street. Like, not only do we not have it, there's someone who has it, and they're right across the street. They are 30 yards from me. I can see through their door. You want me to run across the street and see if they have it and tell you, yeah, I have it, and sell it to you from them? I'll do that. I really couldn't understand it, and it got me really thinking. I must be times where the game store gets called and they're like, hey, do you sell bags and boards for comic books? And they probably go like, no, but there's a comic shop across the street. And people go, huh, that place, or right, yeah, thanks, and hang up. Because again, I know we've had people who don't feel like we're a real comic store. Definitely, people walk in here and they go, literally, I've had this happen to this day. People, do you have any real comic books? And I'm like, real comic books? They go, like comic books. And I'm like, yeah, there's a rack over here. Oh, good. And I'm like, looking for new, or oh, just anything. But I'm like, well, they're all comic books. And I'll get a look, like, they're all comic books, sure, but like, they're graphic novels. They're not really real. Whatever. So I get it. I have that one guy, I've told this story numerous times, who came to the Rebirth midnight signing, spending the whole time. Well, no, he didn't come to the midnight signing. He came at 12:01 once we were allowed to start selling the Rebirth books, the DC Rebirth. But he didn't come for the lecture we had before, and he didn't come for a discussion about the history of DC reboots or any of that stuff. He came and waited in line, and literally the person before him got the last of our special midnight release covers, and he was furious. And talked about how he hated the store, and he put down all the stuff. Like, that guy, sure. If you go on Yelp, one of my favorite reviews on Yelp is a guy going, "This guy always finds some reason to be angry with me." And then you continue reading on that Yelp review, and he talks about how he came in looking for free comics for Halloween, and I explained to him that we give them away on Halloween to trick-or-treaters. We don't have like them to just give away. That was me being angry with him. I get it. And the game store, very possible. Very possible someone went in there looking for Warhammer stuff. They didn't have it. They went in there wanting old Magic cards or single Pokemon cards and they didn't have. Like, but to say it to me like that, like, all right, thank you, bye-bye. I was like, wow, what's the problem? I have people come in all the time here and ask me if we have certain kinds of magazines, or come in and ask if we have calendars or greeting cards, and there's always somewhere for me to send them. And people are usually pretty grateful. They're like, oh, thanks, oh, good to know. But every once in a while, I was like, I've had people come in and ask if we have action figures, superhero action figures, and I'm like, oh, well, and they go, I said, there's a toy store in town. They go, Cow Over the Moon? And I'm like, yeah. They go, yeah, not them. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, they have superhero action figures. They go, no. I'm like, are you looking for Marvel Legends? Are you looking for the direct market? And sometimes they'll say yes. Like, oh, well, the only place I know is Fourth World. But other times they're like, no, just anything. But they had nothing there. Yeah, they didn't have what you were looking for. But it's again, we've talked about this in it's the internet breaking our brain. Like, everything should be available. I had a man come in today, my first customer of the day, 11:56. He said, you have Bud Blake's Tiger? I'm like, I know William Blake's Tiger. Bud Blake's. And I'm thinking, Bud Blake sounds vaguely familiar. It's like the comic strip. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a 60s and 70s comic strip. Like, vaguely sounds familiar. So I start looking it up, and I'm like, I don't think so, unless someone's made a big collection of it, you know? And I go and look, no one's made a big collection. I'm like, look, they don't have anything new, but you can go on eBay and, and the Great Satan itself, Amazon, and just find used copies of those old books. And he goes, oh, great. It's not hard to do a little bit, but it's really weird to do that little extra, to tell someone to go somewhere and think, oh, yeah, right. So, that was my thought. Now, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, I had a completely different topic I wanted to talk about. I see we do have some people sticking around. Joe, Mark are both here, basically our two regulars at this point, now that we're moved to YouTube. So if you guys want, I will continue my conversation, which was going to be about, my topic was going to be about the comic book industry and how I'm not a part of it. I really been giving it a bunch of thought over the last week as stuff like ramps up for Absolute Batman. That was another topic I was going to discuss. I was going to discuss DC All-In, DC Absolute Batman that everyone's crazy for. If you haven't seen the Absolute Batman, I'm giving Joe and Mark or anyone else watching time to tell me if they'd like me to discuss the comic book industry. If you haven't seen Absolute Batman, it's the new Batman universe, new DC universe that they'll be doing. Ultimate Superman as well, and Ultimate Wonder Woman. All wonderful writers and artists doing new takes on these characters. But it's ultimate style, meaning like Marvel had the Ultimate Universe for Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimates that was like the stories but modernized, updated. So that's the same thing with these. The Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman are the same sort of stories, but different. And really thinking about the hype built toward that, it really came to me that, like, I have customers. I had a customer who gets his stuff mailed. He doesn't even live in the country, but he gets it mailed to his son. I got an email today from him. He goes, "What is Absolute Batman?" And I'm thinking, did he look at the catalog? No, he didn't even get the catalog I sent him. He must have been hearing about it on the internet. Guy's in his 60s at least. And so I explained, it's Ultimate Universe, it's his own little thing, blah, 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 blah. I said, for you, yeah, exactly, Earth 1. GC has done this so many times that like that, and then my commentary on the idea of it, it's not even worth having a discussion about. But it really drove me. Like, they did a whole thing where Scott Snyder did a video conference with a bunch of comic retailers, and I didn't need it. It's not that I'm against it. It's not that, I know how many of this I can sell. Every once in a while, you see something like Transformers, Ultimate Spider-Man, where I'm like, okay, I know that I can sell X, but I also know there's going to be a hype train. But I still don't need to sit and talk to the creator. It might help to read the PDF sometimes. I almost did that with this one, with Absolute Batman, but then I realized that I qualified for an order that sent you a discounted bundle, a whole chunk of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm not selling more than that. I'm not selling more than this whole giant chunk, so that'll be plenty. And it'll be plenty for me. That's the thing, is I really, when it comes to single issues, when it comes to Something Explodes, I don't even have people showing up. You know, Something Explodes, like Ultimate Spider-Man's a great example. We got phone calls for 2 or 3 weeks after the #1 came out, if we still had. And you know what? I did. For 2 of those weeks, I had copies of #1 still. I ordered enough. So I'm really confident that we've ordered enough on Ultimate. It could be we didn't order enough. We're not going to have ordered enough for Ultimate Superman or Ultimate Wonder Woman. But Batman has this hype. We have plenty. I just hope that it doesn't get some sort of weird backlash and we don't sell any after the dozen that I have on order or whatever. But I was thinking about it, and I said, why do I feel so disconnected from like the comic market? Is it because I don't sell so many single issues? Is it because my customers aren't? I said, no, I think a big part of it is that I don't, how do I say this? I don't live in the world of the comic direct market. I don't go to conventions. I don't go to Comics Pro. I don't go chase after creators to come and do tons of events in my store. Even when I did events, I didn't go after the super popular creators who had new DC or Marvel books out. That's not how I did it. So I never really got caught into that world where I'm a retailer of note, you know? I'm sure, I hope, I'd like to think that 20 years from now, some of the people who we've had through here, who we've nurtured with their self-published stuff and their small press stuff, and their big names, they'll be like, oh, and thanks to Escape Pod Comics, it's a great search. You see people like Joe Field and people, but there's a different kind of retailer you don't really know about, who goes to all these events, who goes to Comics Pro, who goes to the big conventions. There's just table there, but they talk to all these people who work in marketing, and they're super plugged into all sorts of stuff going on in that world, and I'm just not. I'm really not plugged in on what's happening behind the scenes, this company, that company, that. There was a huge comic thing that came out recently, just the last couple of days, that the new CEO of IDW wants to pay like nothing for the comics. If you look it up, you can see there's all sorts of details about it. And I'm reading this, and there's people are just like furious. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's terrible. Don't, like, people it's going to have a backlash. It's going to come out. People aren't going to work for them, and it will affect things. It didn't say that the guy wants to make this cheap comic thing the only way they do business. He'd like to lower their costs by doing that. It's not going to happen. It might happen for 6 months where they pay only that much and only get those people, but they will lose people working with them who don't want to work that way, or they will pay certain people more, and then it will come out they've paid certain, and it will. So again, but if you're like really plugged in, and you know a million young artists who are trying to get stuff, any work at Boom, at this, that. One of the shops I know is in Savannah, and they are the comic shop for SCAD. They know millions of young artists because they've passed through the Savannah College of Art and Design, and they're furious for them. And for me, I'm just like, well, that sucks. That shouldn't be. But I'm not part of the world enough to feel like this is an insult to everyone who makes comic books. Well, no, it's just it's a suit being stupid. It's all the time in comics. Boom Studios being a Penguin Random House. They just announced that this guy who was a VP at Hasbro and made them tons of money at Hasbro, made Hasbro a huge success. They're going to be running Boom for Penguin Random House. And I'm like, is this guy the guy in charge of like the Hasbro limited releases that they do on their website? Or did he like actually expand their stuff in a way that like can be translated into comics? I just don't know. It's very weird. And I was like, probably I could ask a bunch of retailers who've met this guy. If he was VP at Hasbro and was involved with pushing toy lines or things like that, he knows comic people, just not me. And I'm fine with it. Right now my big thing is wishing I had some time where I wasn't just like so exhausted that I could play this new Movement game I got on my laptop. I got up to the first part where you have to like do actiony stuff and run around instead of just like walking and doing the shit, and it's like haven't played it since. Anyway, I think that's a pretty good live. I think I covered a whole bunch of comic related stuff. I think I stood up for our good friends at the Main Street Board Game Cafe as much as I could. Definitely, if you love gaming and you're in the area, reach out to them. If you love gaming, Joe, and you can make it, obviously at your local comic shop or your comic shop you support like Joe does. Definitely go to your local comic shop, get your gaming stuff from them. But if you can't, you don't have a gaming shop, or you have a comic shop like ours that doesn't do gaming, Main Street Board Game Cafe here in Huntington, definitely reach out to them. I think that's really it. It's been a weird week. I took in some trade-in and I did some pricing and I realized, oh, Mark, if you're in the area, you better freaking stop by. Yeah. Here, before there. Yeah, I did so much pricing on Sunday that when I sat to do a tiny little bit of pricing today, I was like, oh, I can't do this. I gotta not. It was stupid. It's a guy who trades in stuff that the only reason it's worth pricing is because I make some of them into sets. Anyway, so we got a couple of new sets out. And yeah, sent Joe a giant box, 27 pounds worth of stuff for you, Joe, on its way. Until tomorrow, remember, even when you don't like the game store, damn it, babies, you gotta be kind.